Namaste everyone, welcome to Prepare with Lakshmi. Today we'll be discussing about No Second Try by William Butler Yeats. I have already discussed about this poet in my previous poem, that is Adam's Curse, so I'm not going to repeat it again. Let's move on. Also about Maud Gonne, we have discussed already about Maud Gonne and the relationship between her and William Butler Yeats. So again I'm not going to discuss this. The same thing I have put over here. The most important point you have to remember here is this poem is totally about her, Maud Gonne. Okay, he asks 4 rhetorical questions over here. This is totally about her, and he compares her to Helen of Troy. And in this poem you can feel the rejection of the poet and the resentment of the poet he felt when she rejected each and every time. You can see the resentment of the poet in this poem. He is bitter, angry, and then he is philosophical. So let's know a little bit more about the poem. Now, Yeats published No Second Try in 1916 in the collection Responsibilities and Other Poems. In this poem, he compares Maud Gonne to Helen of Troy. Now, you have to know who is Helen of Troy. This is an allusion the poet uses. Allusion means a person who is not in the poem. You are talking about a person who is not actually in the poem. That figure of speech is called as an allusion. Here he alludes to Helen of Troy. That means you have to know who is this Helen of Troy. Now Helen of Troy was one of the most beautiful women of all times. Whenever you are talking about beauty of women, Cleopatra and Helen of Troy is one person who comes to your mind. But also she becomes a face for Trojan War. Because of her, Trojan War started and happened, and it prolonged for more than 10 years. So yeah, also, even though she was most beautiful woman, when you hear to her name, when you remember her name, the first thing that comes to your mind is her beauty and the along with Trojan War. So she became the face for that war. So same way here, the poet is saying how Helen of Troy brought about Trojan War, Maud Gonne brought about violence among ignorant men in Ireland. She instigated them to go against British government for independence of Ireland. That is what he is comparing to here. He is alluding to. And this is one of my favorite poems because this is the first poem I read as soon as I got the books, IGNO books, MA IGNO books. This is the first poem I read, and I thought this is a small and sweet poem. Let us read and I'll finish it off. But this took such a long time because of all the research, all the history I had to know about William Butler Yeats and Maud Gonne and their love history. And if you can, please go and read about his story. Then later you will come to know that he not only proposed to Maud Gonne, he also goes on and proposes to his daughter who was 16 years old when he was more than 40 plus years old. So it's very interesting to read his background, not only about his poems, but his background is also very interesting to read, and why the daughter also rejects him, and how the life is. So it's so wonderful. You have to read it. If you are interested, please go and read about William Butler Yeats. It's very interesting, and you can see how he transformed himself, how his poems were in the beginning. If you have known the Lake Isle of Innisfree, we have this poem in 9th standard. If you don't know, you can actually see in my poems. I have talked about the Lake Isle of Innisfree. So simple poem. From there to he has gone on to No Second Try, which is very complicated poem. So the poem is divided into 3 quatrains, and the rhyme scheme is A B A B, C D C D, and E F E F. But grammatically, the poem is divided into 2 5-line stanzas and a couplet. Couplet means 2 lines. Some people mistake it for a sonnet, but normally a sonnet has 14 lines. And this poem centers around 4 rhetorical questions, and the answers we get for them. Why should I blame her that she filled my days with misery, or that she would of late have taught to ignorant men most violent ways, or hurled the little streets upon the great? had they but courage equal to desire? What could have made her peaceful with a mind that nobleness made simple as a fire, with beauty like a tightened bow, a kind that is not natural in an age like this, being high and solitary and most stern? Why, what could she have done, being what she is? Was there another Troy for her to burn? Now here if you see, it revolves, the poem is about four questions. First question he asks is, why should I blame her? What is he blaming her for? That she filled my days with misery, that she has filled his days with unhappiness. Why should he blame her for filling his? So he is asking, why should I blame her? I let her fill my days with happiness. Or what is the other reason he is asking? That she would of late means more recently, it was not there previously. Of late means more recently she is up to some other mischief. What is that? She has taught the ignorant men most violent ways. Now here ignorant men he uses as in common man of Ireland, commoners, Irish commoners. Common people means peasants or all these people. She is teaching them violent ways. What does he mean by that? He is talking that she is a nationalist, she is a national activist, she is instigating the common men against the British government. Okay, now when he says, why should I blame her that she filled my days with unhappiness, he is actually resentful, he is angry, he is bitter, because she has rejected him not once but more than once. So he is resentful and angry and bitter. But he comes to the point in the next one. He also says, of late she is up to something. What is it? She is instigating ignorant men of little streets, or hurling the little streets upon the great. Hurling means throwing. How can she pick up a street and throw the street on somebody on the other street? It's not possible. What she is talking, what the poet is talking is, here it is a metaphor. Little streets means where poor people live. Great streets is where the wealthy people or a noble people live. So little streets means what is she doing? She is instigating the poor people, the commoners, against the great people or the wealthy people or the nobility. That means she is instigating the common people to go against the government. She is actually a national activist. She is fighting for the independence of Ireland. So she is instigating, she is investing all her energy on this common people to go against government. And then he asks a question, had they but courage equal to desire? So he is asking, they have a desire, they have a wish to go against the government, but do they have courage to equal that desire? He is asking, do they have enough courage to go against government even though she is instigating them? What could have made her peaceful with a mind that nobleness made simple as a fire, with beauty like a tightened bow, a kind that is not natural in an age like this, being high and solitary and most stern? Now Maud Gonne is explained here as having a noble personality. Maybe she is a nobility, we say she is a heiress. Okay, she belongs to noble class. And how is her mind? He compares her mind to a fire. Now fire doesn't have a gray area, it is as simple as a fire. Means what? The mind is like a fire, means it does not think, it is very simple as a fire. Either it torches or it pulls off, that is, it goes off. So he is comparing her mind to a fire. And then he goes on to explain that her beauty is like a tightened bow. Now this line is so beautiful, because the tightened bow is a weapon of old time. That is why he is saying a kind that is not natural in an age like this. During these times, this kind of weapon is not used, but her beauty is compared to a tightened bow. When you see a tightened bow, it has a graceful, Okay, it is very graceful in its beauty, and it has some kind of tension in it. If there is no tension, the arrow will not push forward so much. That is, there is a tension in the bow. Same way, she is filled with that energetic tension. And he is comparing here of an age of Greek mythology. See, he is referring here to Greek mythology. He is saying tightened bow does not belong to this age. He is saying she is a person who does not belong to this age. Okay, and also if we take, instead of Greek, in Greek mythology, Odyssey is a person who has a bow that is so tight that he can string it so tight. Okay, he is super strong, and his bow is graceful, and he is noble, and the tension that the bow has enormous strength also, because the arrow shoots out of the bow to a very long distance. That means the tension of the string has a lot of energy with it, has a lot of tension in it. And even if we don't allude to Odyssey or Greek mythology, even in Mahabharata we have Arjuna. Arjuna's weapon is Gandiva. If you know that bow and arrow is his. And if you see, he is the bow is a balance. It works as a balance. Even if you see the position of Arjuna, he is between two brothers of Kunti and two brothers of Madri. So he acts as a balance between those two brothers, the elder brothers and the younger brothers, and he is a middleman. And also his weapon is Gandiva, that is this bow and arrow, and it has great balance. So we can say that from Mahabharata also, this tightened bow has a symbol of grace and balance in the form of Arjuna. And he says her beauty is like that. It has so much energy, so much strength, and also it is very graceful, a kind that is not natural. In this age we don't use such things, so she doesn't belong to this age. Being high and solitary and most stern, she is of high class. Being high means she comes from a very wealthy family, she belongs to a nobility. And solitary, she is alone. Her mind is she is very clever. She doesn't want another person's approval that she is doing well. She knows that she is intelligent, and that is why she became an educated national activist. So she knows what she is actually doing, and most stern. She is set in her ways. She will not change. She is a dynamic activist. Okay, so he compares her to a tightened bow, which is a beauty in itself. Why? What could she have done being what she is? Now he simply asks us, what could she have done being she is what she is? She is like that, so she will behave that way only. So what could have been done? She is like that only, so she behaves like that only. He is simply saying she is that way, so she will behave that way. Was there another Troy for her to burn? Now, this is a line which is very, very important. Here is what he alludes to Helen of Troy. He is saying here, Helen of Troy was the face who brought about Trojan War. Okay, because of her, the Trojan War started. But there are many political ramifications. But whenever we think about Helen, she becomes a face for this Trojan War. Okay, now here he says there was no second Troy for Maud gone to burn. No, she could not have invested all her energy into second Troy to burn. That is why she invested all her energy into fighting for freedom of Ireland. He says there was no other second Troy for her to burn. That is why all her energy she has invested in to fight for the independence of Ireland. So here, this line, with this line we can remember why the title was given as No Second Troy, because there was no other Troy for her to burn. So this is a very poetic way we can say that he is ending the poem. This is one of the best poems I have ever read. Maybe I have read very few poems, not many, but still I love this poem, and for very first day I read this poem and I never forgot the meaning. So I hope you enjoyed as much as I enjoyed this poem. If you have liked, please give like, and subscribe to my channel. I am going to make many more videos on Igno Megwan. So thank you for listening to me. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye. Meet you soon.